Hey guys, it's Ashley from the awakenstate.net, and today we are going to talk about resistance. I feel this is the first fresh video of the new year. It's been a while. I haven't filmed in over a month, and I think it's so critical to talk about what resistance is, how it works, and most importantly, how we can choose to personally navigate our own resistance and overcome it. So let's talk about that. Stay tuned. Hey guys, so let's talk about resistance. So I'm going to be real with you, like getting back into the flow of things is not always easy. And after taking 3 weeks off and then not filming for a month, getting back into the routine has honestly been difficult. And yesterday I read an amazing passage by one of my favorite mentors, Katrina Ruth, and she talked a lot about how you're an artist, a creative, a messenger, a leader, a person who is in the transformation space when you have the battle cry of resistance on a daily basis. And I read that and I was so inspired by just that concept, because it is like a battle cry of resistance every day when you wake up in the transformation space. And I think one of the hugest things that has really shifted tremendously how I see resistance is not just a teacher, but it's always there. And it will always be there. And the concept really becomes, how are we choosing to navigate through it? How are we choosing to overcome it? And most importantly, how can we choose to personally override it? And so if you don't know what resistance is, so let's just rewind. So what is resistance? Resistance is literally the moment when you go to write the book, you go to post the video, you go to write or read or just take any kind of action in your life, but instead you're met with this gripping, like annoying, complaining kind of ego chatter in your mind that says, but who am I to do that? Why would I do that? Why would little me, like, how can I create an impact? Or it'll be more like a resistance of, well, I'm feeling pretty good today and I'm feeling pretty comfortable, so everything's good. I'm just gonna chill. I don't need to take that action. I don't need to exercise today. I'm pretty good. It's pretty chill. It doesn't matter. Or resistance can come in the form of like gripping anxiety, of like how I first felt when doing like Facebook Lives, for example, like, oh my God, I could make an absolute fool of myself. It could be a disaster. What if? And it can become this almost dreading anxiety feeling of, I cannot do this because of all of these reasons. I cannot do this because of all of that. And resistance becomes literally a conversation of, you are actively resisting what you want. And when it comes to manifestation, goal setting, creativity, moving forward on your creative projects or creative goals, anyone who is in that same vein will meet the monster of resistance every single time, because it is showing us how to grow. And resistance is a teacher and a tool to show us how to overcome our own past experiences, our own past behaviors, our own past habits, and most importantly, our own past emotions. A lot of the times what you'll find with resistance is you have more of a gripping anxiety and negative emotion and like awful kind of ego chatter, the more you continue to put off the thing. And the more that you put off the thing, the more that you're going to start to see that it's just like this overbearing feeling of like dread or confusion or overwhelm or exhaustion or draining you. And it feels as if you're in this battle with your mind in wanting to pursue the thing. And what you'll find, and this is time and time and time and time again, you will find this when you just do the thing anyway, the resistance will dissipate and you will drop into a flow state. You will drop into soul, you will drop into superflow, you will drop into the quantum, and all of a sudden the resistance will dissipate and you will be on the other side. And then you'll be like, that wasn't really that bad. That really wasn't that bad at all. Why was I in such a huge state of overcoming? Well, it's because you were growing into a new experience, into a new behavior, into a new habit, into a new emotion. When we decide to pursue a new goal, a new manifestation, a new intention, anything like that, we will always meet the head of resistance because we're choosing to grow outside of our comfort zone and into the space of a new trajectory, a new experience, a new possibility for ourselves. It's like when you first learn to drive, you're always probably met with like some fear, anxiety, or you feel drained or exhausted or just dreading like getting back behind the wheel because you don't know what the fuck you're doing. So it feels like there's a ton of resistance to doing the thing. I know when I took piano lessons, I felt that way a lot because it just felt really confusing at first. And then the more I started to study the notes and study the patterns of the left hand versus the right hand, it started to become easier and easier and easier the more I practiced and the more I did it with repetition and consistency. This is the same thing. When we look at creativity or goal setting or intention setting or going after anything you truly want, you will always have resistance because you are overcoming your past self. So how do we navigate through that? Well, I think for most of us, what we have to realize, there will be people who will always just live in the resistance. And then there will be people like you and I who know that we can choose to navigate through it and override the resistance and drop back into flow. And I think this is the huge, huge, huge difference. You have to be willing to see the illusion for what it is, and it's just your past self literally screaming that it's jumping out of its comfort zone. It's literally the moment that you take the action that you can kill a limited belief and supersede it into a different belief, because you're allowing yourself to systematically override your resistance by moving forward into a different belief, into a different emotion, into a different habit, into a different, you get the picture. So when you start to see that resistance itself is nothing more than resisting actively what you want, the more you properly understand what resistance is, how it's a teacher in your life, and how you can use it as a tool to overcome literally what you don't want, you can see that it is actually way easier to navigate the more that you use your resistance, your ego, your negative emotion, your overwhelm, your complaining, your excuses. The more that you start to see it for what it is, you soften the blow of the ego death. And in return, you just drop into flow. And I think this is like so funny because what I've noticed, and this is what's been happening over the past 2 years, is I noticed that a lot of what goes on in healing, forgiveness, really letting go of old limited beliefs, letting go of old systems, letting go of old habits, all of it is just literally softening the blow of the ego death so that you feel comfortable enough to be on the other side. And the moment that you see it for what it is, it's just an illusion of overriding the past. And the past is the point where you have reached your inevitable sense of growth. So to put this in like simple terms, when you think of resistance from this lens of, I'm going to just push through anyway, I'm just going to pull forward anyway, I'm just going to take the action anyway, I'm just going to show up anyway and take the action, I'm just going to do it anyway, I'm just going to override my own resistance and be on the other side, you'll notice that the more you do that and the more you start to navigate and see what resistance actually is just your past. You can't change your past. You can either just accept it or be in turmoil about it. You either just accept it or you're in turmoil about it. And that's where resistance comes in. You're resisting the present moment. Resistance is literally nothing more than resisting what actually is and the acceptance of what is right now in this moment. So resistance is literally a moment where you have decided that you have basically, you are resisting the past and the present future thinking. So you're in a space where you're resisting the present moment for what it is. And as a turn, and this is where it gets really cool, you start to see that you're disconnecting from soul in that moment. You're literally disconnecting the mind from the body. And as a result, you're disconnecting your magnetism, which is naturally inside of you. And because you can't see that, all you see is the resistance to doing. All you see is the resistance to having. You see the resistance to being in that space. All you can see is that you have allowed the resistance to take the narrative over your own truth, over what you truly desire, over what you truly want. And instead, all this comes back to is you just decided to settle. You just decided to settle where it's comfortable. You just decided to settle in the past story, the past narrative, the past whatever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But when you start to see it for what it is, that the real journey is learning how to navigate resistance properly. And so a lot of my courses go over how do we manage and really learn how to navigate our own sense of resistance, because that is honestly half of the battle. And like I said, it is the battle cry of the resistance. And how we learn to overcome that is we literally have to jump in the fire. We literally have to go for it anyway. We have to practice showing up anyway. We have to manage our mental state, our emotional state, and choose to take the leap anyway. We have to feel safe taking that leap anyway. And so over the years, what I've really learned, and these are your soul takeaways today, is you have to be willing to create safety in the body to know that it's safe to leap. And sometimes that's easier said than done. So it's like when you're doing a Facebook Live for the first time, maybe you could set some intentions around feeling safe, around like, even if someone laughs at me, it's not a big deal. Or even if I pause on screen, I can just laugh it off. Or what happens is you have to create safety in your resistance. And that will help soften your nervous system to be able to take the action easier. So one of the hugest things you can do is you can create beliefs that fully support where you desire to go next. And what I talk about a lot in Awaken Your Aligned Vision is how we can create an aligned action plan that really supports our goals and desires from a mental state of mind, not just a physical state of mind. Most people are approaching their goals only from the physical effort alone. And in reality, what we need to be doing is creating that support container, that safety container that's mentally supporting our goals, emotionally supporting our goals. So we have the mind-body connection working full time so that our magnetism, our intuition, everything comes on board to help fulfill that desire versus just physical effort alone. You are so much more powerful than physical effort alone. And when your resistance starts to take over you and you start to be like, well, who am I to have that? And these are all the reasons why I can't have that. And I'm not good enough. And I'm never doing enough. And I'm never saying enough. And blah, 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 blah. All of that is just noise from your past self, your ego, literally saying, I'm going to stay in my comfort zone and refuse to leap. The moment that you start to see that you can choose to navigate your resistance properly is the moment that you are set free. Because you can see it for what it is. It's just an illusion of your past. It's literally an illusion of refusing to grow. And the ultimate takeaway here is, how can you personally start to overcome your own resistance and show up anyway? What do you need to do to support yourself mentally, emotionally, physically, to support the desire? Because as you'll find, the more that you learn how to support the desire, the more you learn how to support the actions you're taking, the more you learn how to just be in this space of creating that safety container for your desire, the easier it becomes to work with your resistance. 100%. And ultimately, that can also come back to your affirmations, like creating affirmations that support the desire, creating affirmations like, I always take daily action towards my goals, or I always show up for my exercise practice, or I always show up for my spiritual practice, or whatever it may be. And allowing yourself to literally be accountable with yourself, where you stop being in this space of overwhelm, because overwhelm is nothing more than resisting what simply is. And the more we see overwhelm and exhaustion and dread and all of these feelings that feel misaligned in our bodies, we can see that the real journey is ultimately about, how do we properly navigate resistance while feeling safe and supported in our body? And that's all what it's about. Like, we could be here all day talking about what resistance actually is, but 9 times out of 10, it's about, do you feel safe in taking the action? Because if you don't, that's where the real work begins. Okay, so that was our first lesson of the year on resistance. If you guys are interested in learning more about Awaken Your Aligned Vision, it will be launching at the end of this month. And there's also a digital planner coming, which I'm so excited about, that's going to basically accompany the workshop. So if you have any questions about that, don't be afraid to reach out. I will drop some links down below for you, and I'll see you guys next week. Love ya.